final episode on how to make parchment. At the start of this process, I rehydrated some goatskin, stretched it out on the parchment frame, scraped it down with the lunellum and rubbed it smooth with cuttlefish and sanding paper. And so today I'm going to finish by rubbing it down with some natural pumice stone, and then I'm going to cut out the parchment. So this is the natural pumice stone that I'm going to be using today, and it's a traditional product that they would have used. And I'm just going to do exactly as I did before with the cuttlefish and the sandpaper, just use a nice circular motion to smooth it down. This not only smooths the parchment, it actually makes it easier to write on, because the cuttlefish and the pumice actually soak up any natural grease that is still left on the animal skin, which would otherwise repel the ink. And so I've just done both sides, and that is it. Now it's time to cut out the parchment and see what we've got. So I've got a sharp blade and some large scissors. And I'm going to start by just popping out some corners. I'm just going to cut into each corner horizontally and vertically, just so it's going to be easier when I'm cutting out the whole skin, and I don't have to try and get the scissors round a 90-degree angle. You can see quite a lot of the dust from the pumice stone coming off there as well. So, with the scissors, just cut from corner to corner. The scissors go through really easily. It's just like cutting thick card. And actually, because it is so easy to cut through, I just use the blade in the end. But be careful, obviously, if you're doing this yourself. And that's the parchment. There it is. It feels very nice. It doesn't feel too thick. It's quite flexible. And it feels like a great material to be working with. And that's the poor parchment frame now, looking a bit sad and sorry for itself. Okay, so here's the finished product. This is the flesh side and this is the hair side. You can tell the difference when you compare them together. The flesh side is much whiter and the hair side is yellower. And you can see here already, after just an hour or so of being taken off the parchment frame, how the parchment wants to return to its original shape as it would have been on the animal. So you see this curve here. This is the flesh side, the innermost side, so that's where it would have curved around the body. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to store it in this cardboard folder just to keep it flat. Okay, so welcome back. I've cut my parchment. I'm really pleased with the result. It's turned out really well. It's almost papery. It feels very thin, which I'm really glad, because the first one I tried to do, with a smaller piece of goatskin, it's much thicker. You can probably hear how inflexible it is, and it's very stiff still, whereas this, it's much lighter, it's much thinner, so I'm really pleased. It definitely bodes well for the future, so yeah, very, very pleased how that's turned out. Things I've learned from this. It's really hard to get the tension right, or to get enough tension, I found, either without ripping the holes that I'd already made in the skin. You can see this piece here that I've taken, and you can see where the holes have ripped and I've had to remake new holes. Or the string would break when I was pulling it, or it did rip my hands to shreds, so I didn't like doing that, and I do think next time I definitely will try using the stones pushed through and then tied round and secured that way. It just seems a much less invasive, or almost, you know, it just seems like you get a much gentler stretch doing it that way. So I think definitely I'm going to try and do that with the calf skin. You know, quite typical that you actually end up always going back to the traditional methods rather than trying to be clever and use you know, new methods like I did with the original type of string that I was using. I abandoned that pretty soon. So that says something, I suppose. The wet skin, it was definitely easier to work when the skin was wet, much easier to scrape, much easier to stretch. The dry skin gets brittle quite quickly, so I guess next time I'd make sure I would work as much as I can, do as much work scraping etc. with the wet skin and pulling to get the tension that way. Because I mean the Lunellen blade, it went through the skin when I was scraping it when it was dry as well, so that's something to be careful of. More stuff comes off the flesh side. I probably should have known that anyway, but yeah, definitely I think next time there's not so much need to work so much on the hair side. I mean, that's just beautiful and smooth. It just feels lovely, really lovely. The flesh side is much more suedey, and that's normal. I do have a piece of goat skin from William Cowley which you'd be using as a reference, and that is normal. So this is the goat skin I have from William Cowley. It is, I mean, you can feel it much more suedey on this side, and this side is the smooth side. And I'd say, yeah, I mean, I think this is actually thinner. So I don't think I've gone too far wrong with that. What else did I learn? It's not that smelly, actually. I mean, obviously I had the sanitised version because all the really nasty stuff had already been taken off, and all the hair and things like that, but I still thought it would have been worse than what it was. When it was wet, it did smell a lot stronger, and the cats were definitely more interested at that stage, but it wasn't, you know, it still wasn't unpleasant. So again, that bodes well for the future and means that I won't have any suspicious glances from the neighbours and things like that, so that's good to know. It's you know, it's quite a forgiving material. When I was, you know, I would sort of re-stretch it every few days, and there was one time when I noticed that it had cockled along the bottom, so I just re-wet the whole thing and re-stretched it, and that smoothed it out then for good. So there is room for manoeuvre, you know. You can go back and re-wet it and re-stretch it, so that's good to know. I mean, you know, I'm just mucking around. I'm not this, you know, my livelihood doesn't depend upon this, so I don't have to get it right first time, and even then I don't need perfection, so that's fine for me. But it's nice to be able to have the time to explore these things without sort of having nothing rests too much on the end result. Whatever it is It's like when I made the ink, iron gall ink the first time, I really didn't know how it was going to turn out. And, you know, then it was fine, and it ended up, you know, it made a mark on a piece of paper, which was just amazing. You know, it's so good when these things work. So yes, I'm really very pleased, and now I'm really looking forward to working on the calfskin, which will be my next project. I am going to do something with this. Not quite sure yet. Either an illumination or some calligraphy, or probably a mixture of both. And I'll use both sides just to see how they compare. And that'll be exciting. That'll probably take a bit longer, so I might do an update later on for that. But in the meantime, I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope it's been somewhat useful. If not, the cats were there as a distraction. It really gives you an understanding of the material. If you're studying manuscripts, it really gives you an idea of where these materials came from, and you understand more about the hair and flesh side, and the markings on the skin, all that sort of stuff. So it's definitely really beneficial to me to do these things. Hopefully it is for you too. Okay, thank you.